I wasn't expecting a show that morning, but Travis, our so-called interim CEO, had other plans. He leaned back in the leather chair like he owned the building, a smirk plastered across his jawline as if someone had handed him the keys to capitalism itself. 28, all bravado and cologne, the nephew of our actual CEO, and the kind of man who thought confidence was a substitute for competence. "Take your 2 weeks and go quietly," he announced, loud enough for the acquisition committee to hear. He said it like he was calling trivia night at a Chili's, not firing the woman who'd built the operational backbone of Core Sentry for the last 8 years. His blazer was too tight. His PowerPoint still frozen on a title slide that read, Core Sentry 2.0, streamlined, synergized, savage. I wish I were joking. The buyers, 4 executives from Nordell Systems, stared at him like he was a raccoon trying to drive a golf cart. One scribbled notes. Another discreetly recorded the moment on their phone. They weren't impressed. They were gathering evidence. And me? I didn't argue. I didn't plead. I just smiled. Not the polite kind. The kind of smile you make when you've been watching a slow-motion car crash everyone else insists is a parade. Travis thought this was his grand finale. He didn't realize he'd just handed me the fuse to a bomb he signed himself. The truth is, Travis wasn't supposed to be here. When the real CEO retired suddenly, there was no handoff, no binder, no continuity plan, just a Slack announcement from HR saying, Travis will be assuming executive oversight until further notice. He showed up late that day with a self-printed badge and a mug that read, World's Okayest Leader. From that moment, I knew we were in trouble. He strutted into an all-hands meeting and declared, We're going to disrupt some silos, people. No roadmaps, no vendor calendar, no compliance logins, just stale donuts in the break room and a man who thought COO stood for Champ of Operations Only. Within a week, department heads were calling me directly to put out fires he didn't even see. Finance couldn't move Q3 disbursements because he replied, circle back to every email like it was a magic spell. Legal couldn't finalize contracts because he didn't know what signature authority meant. IT locked him out of systems he swore he had master access to. Spoiler, master access isn't a vibe. Me? I kept the company breathing. Vendor negotiations, compliance reports, logistics continuity. I carried it on my back. I wasn't chasing recognition. I wasn't plotting revenge. I was just trying to stop a $600 million acquisition from collapsing because a manchild thought LinkedIn Premium made him a strategist. And here's the irony. The buyers noticed. Not because I begged for relevance, not because I waved red flags, but because I quietly did the work Travis couldn't even see. When Nordell's VP of Integration asked for a continuity framework, I didn't send spin. I sent structure, bullet points, dates, real bones of the machine they were buying. They copied me on emails Travis thought he owned. They asked me, not him, for risk timelines. And when I flagged a blank line in the staffing draft titled Continuity Lead, I didn't say a word. I just dragged it into a folder I named Just in Case. But Travis couldn't stay quiet. He bragged. He forwarded my plans as his own. He kicked me out of leadership calls and called it leaning into agility. And now, standing in front of Nordell's executives, declaring my farewell like he was tossing an intern out of karaoke, he thought he was untouchable. What he didn't know was that the clause he signed without reading would soon erase him faster than any memo could erase me. Travis thought he was ending my career in that boardroom. In reality, he had just signed the first page of his own obituary. The buyers weren't casual executives. These were private equity sharks from Nordell Systems, Chicago suits who could smell operational decay faster than mold in a walk-in fridge. They sat at the table like poker players with full hands, waiting for the amateur across from them to fold. And Travis strutted in like a man holding Uno cards. He gestured toward me without even glancing. Carol's been a huge part of our legacy team, he said, tone dripping with fake gravitas. But we're moving in a new direction. Lean, agile, aggressive. 2 weeks should be plenty for her to transition out. He said it like he was honoring me, but everyone in the room knew what it really was. Reverse gear, tires squealing over my career. The Nordell execs didn't clap. They didn't nod. One simply tapped his pen. Another typed something on her phone. Silent judgment. Delicious judgment. What Travis didn't know, and what made every sideways glance so satisfying, was that I'd already been working with Nordell's due diligence team. Not begging, not scheming. Just cleaning up the mess he left behind. When they asked about vendor audits he canceled, I rescheduled them. When legal needed missing documents, I handed them over. When Nordell wanted a risk timeline, I gave them the map. Quietly, surgically, I'd built trust while Travis built PowerPoints. And here's the kicker: Travis's ego did half the work for me. He copied Nordell on memos where he stole credit for my 6-month plans. He bragged about kicking me out of leadership calls. He told buyers we were future-proofing operations, while I forwarded proof of missed compliance deadlines. He thought he was flexing. Really, he was confessing. The day he swaggered into HQ with Bryce, his frat buddy turned director of strategic transformation, was the day I knew the buyers were circling. Bryce was the kind of guy who thought charisma was a standing desk and synergy was a whiteboard full of nonsense verbs. Within days, our vendor queue collapsed because he deleted compliance approvals. A supplier literally drove to HQ threatening repossession. Travis laughed it off in the break room over protein bars. "Carol," he said, "maybe if you focused less on being alarmist and more on being adaptive, this wouldn't be a problem. You're just ops. As if the logistics systems, vendor pipelines, and risk contingency plans I built weren't the reason we were even on Nordell's radar. I stopped warning, stopped fixing problems before they exploded. Instead, I documented. I highlighted gaps, quietly mapped out every domino I knew would fall, and the buyers noticed. Emails came. First subtle, CC'd threads, polite questions. Then direct. "Carol, can you confirm the vendor onboarding timeline?" Not ask Travis, not loop leadership, just Carol. Then came the internal draft labeled transition staffing notes, line after line of placeholders. But one caught my eye. Continuity lead, blank. I saved it, marked with a sticky note. Because sometimes wars aren't won in boardrooms. They're won in footnotes. Travis thought he was narrating my farewell. What he didn't realize was that the buyers had already started writing his... The silence after Travis's little performance was brutal. You could hear the hum of the AC. The buyers didn't blink. They just waited, like hunters letting the prey trip over its own feet. And then Maya, Nordell's VP of integration, tilted her head and said calmly, "Perhaps Carol can clarify. She's listed explicitly." The room shifted. All eyes swung to me. Travis's smug grin twitched. "Listed? What do you mean listed?" His voice cracked at the edges. He reached for the contract binder like it might bail him out. Too late. I slid a folder across the table. Page 14, highlighted in yellow. Clause 3E, the guillotine in plain text. All staffing decisions related to transition phase operational personnel must receive final approval from the designated continuity lead whose sole authority may not be overridden by temporary or interim executives not ratified by the board. And underneath, in black ink, continuity lead, Carol R. Ellis. Travis blinked hard, lips moving as he read it once, twice, 3 times. His hand twitched toward his tie. Bryce leaned in, squinting, then leaned back like he'd touched an exposed wire. The buyers stayed silent, patient, enjoying the spectacle. Finally, Travis slammed his palm on the table. This isn't binding. This is filler. Nobody told me. Maya cut him off with 4 words. You signed it. 4 words heavier than a gavel. Travis froze, mouth half open, looking for backup. None came. The department heads avoided his eyes. Legal flipped pages like he wasn't even there. Even Bryce slid half an inch away from him, suddenly allergic to loyalty. I leaned forward, voice calm but sharp. This clause exists to prevent disruption, which means your decision to terminate me? Invalid, a ripple moved through the room. Someone stifled a chuckle. Someone else scribbled furiously. The buyers didn't even hide their smirks now, Travis flailed. She doesn't have executive experience. She's middle management at best. I've been guiding this company through missed vendor renewals, an auditor interrupted. Through payroll errors? Through compliance violations flagged under your watch? Each word landed like a hammer, his face drained. Bryce tried to recover, babbling about disruption and innovation, but Maya cut him clean. Your disruption nearly cost this deal. That was it. The pivot. The exact second when every pair of eyes that mattered turned away from Travis and toward me. Authority doesn't shift with speeches. It shifts with recognition. And in that room, it shifted quietly, permanently. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. I just folded the clause back into my folder and said, the transition can still succeed. But it needs structure, accountability, continuity. Nordell's lead counsel asked, and you're prepared to provide that? Yes. 1 word. Enough. Travis thought he was running the meeting. What he didn't realize was that his career had just been deleted, silently, permanently, with a single sticky note. The clause had landed. The buyers moved on, steady and professional. But Travis, he wasn't built for silence. Men like him don't fold. They flail, and as the meeting shifted into vendor updates and compliance checklists, I could feel his panic radiating off him like heat from a busted server rack. He snapped his fingers at Bryce. "Pull a compliance memo. We'll challenge this. Legal will back us." Bryce opened his laptop, typing furiously, but Nordell's counsel was 3 chairs away. One eyebrow raised, one quiet word. "Not permitted." Within minutes, Bryce was escorted out like a school kid caught cheating on an exam. "The first fracture." Travis shot to his feet, voice booming too loud for the polished mahogany room. "This acquisition is a sham. This isn't what I agreed to. You're stripping me of my rightful authority." The Nordell CEO didn't even look up from his binder. "You believe incorrectly." 4 words. Soft, final. Travis froze mid-rant, hands twitching uselessly by his sides. The room carried on without him. By lunch, he was desperate enough to corner me in the hallway. His tie was loose, his eyes wild. "You think you've won?" he spat. "You're nothing but a placeholder. They don't trust you. You're disposable." I adjusted my badge, let the metal catch the light, and said nothing. Silence, the one weapon he couldn't fight. His face twisted like he'd been slapped. He came back swinging in the afternoon session, stormed into the room clutching a folder like it was a weapon. He slapped it on the table so hard the water glasses trembled. "Operational deficiencies," he declared. "Failures under Carol Ellis's watch. If she's the so-called continuity lead, then the buyer should see what she's been hiding." The Nordell CEO opened the folder. Maya skimmed the pages. Alan leaned in. Then they looked at each other, unimpressed. "Screenshots of draft Slack threads?" Maya asked, dry as sandpaper. "Half without timestamps? One literally says, 'Ignore. Draft only.' This isn't evidence. It's noise." Travis's ears flushed crimson. He doubled down. "She's sabotaging us. Feeding you curated lies? This is fraud." "Fraud requires intent," Maya replied. "All we've seen from Ms. Ellis's documentation. From you, systemic negligence." She slid the folder back across the table. "It might as well have been a death certificate." He broke then. Slammed his palm down, voice cracking. "This company is mine. My uncle built it. I carried it." The Nordell CEO finally looked up, gaze steady, voice calm. "You haven't been carrying. You've been obstructing. And now, you're dismissed, not reassigned, not reallocated, dismissed." Bryce froze mid-keystroke. HR shifted in their seats. Travis looked like the floor had dropped out beneath him. He tried one last gasp. "You don't have the authority," but the CEO just gestured at my badge. Authority wasn't a debate. It was already decided. Security moved in. Not guards in uniforms. Compliance officers in tailored suits. Discreet. Unyielding. They flanked him, murmured something about forensic review. The phrase drained the fight from his face. He packed his bag with shaking hands and let himself be escorted out. The room exhaled. HR began redrafting memos. Bryce lingered like a stray dog, unsure who to follow now. And me? I sat still, calm, binder closed, badge gleaming. The balance of power had shifted. Quietly, permanently. But I knew Travis. Men like him don't vanish clean. They come back louder, meaner, more desperate. And when he did, it wouldn't be for the company. It would be for revenge. Travis had been escorted out. But the storm wasn't over. It was only circling back, darker than before. The next morning, the building felt lighter, like someone had cracked a window after weeks of stale air. Travis had been escorted out. Done. Finished. Or so everyone thought. But men like him don't retreat. They reload. By the time I reached the 32nd floor, rumors were already swirling. Payroll errors. Vendor cancellations. Shipments stalled at docks. Every issue traced back to one name, Travis Harrison. He should have been locked out. But IT discovered what I already suspected. He'd planted backdoors, scripts, loopholes. His digital fingerprints were everywhere, turning systems into weapons against us. By noon, the damage was undeniable. Employees received fake HR notices about redundancy reviews. Vendors called, furious over phantom termination letters. Finance scrambled when approvals vanished mid-queue. Chaos engineered. His last card was sabotage, and he played it well. I called IT. Scrub him. Every credential, every ghost account. Root and stem. We're trying, the director admitted. But he anticipated this. Built redundancies into the redundancies. Of course he had. For the first time, I felt the edge of his cunning. Not genius. Never that. but the spiteful cleverness of a man who knew he'd need an escape hatch. Then came the show. Travis stormed back into HQ like he'd never left, security trailing uselessly behind him. He shoved open the glass doors of the integration floor, shouting loud enough to rattle the windows. "This is a hostile takeover! Nordell's bleeding this company dry and you're letting them? Look at payroll. Look at shipments. They're collapsing already. And you think she can save you?" Dozens of heads turned. Fear is contagious. Doubt hung in the air like smoke. Some employees looked at me wide-eyed. Others looked away, unsure. Travis saw it. He fed it. I rose slowly, letting the badge on my lapel catch the light. "Travis Harrison has been dismissed," I said firmly. "Every directive tied to his name is null. What you're seeing are the last convulsions of sabotage. If you follow his orders, you're complicit." He laughed. Sharp, bitter. "Complicit? I'm the only one protecting you. Ellis isn't your savior. She's their puppet. Nordell will gut this place, and she'll hand them the knife." His voice rose with each sentence, desperation disguised as certainty. He lunged toward me, palm slamming the table so hard pens rolled off. His breath was sharp, his eyes bloodshot. "You think you've beaten me? I have records, files. If I go down, I'll take you with me." The room froze. He wanted fear. He wanted to see me flinch. Instead, I leaned closer, my voice low but carrying, "Then use them. Because every second you don't, everyone here sees the truth. You have nothing." For the first time, he faltered. Security pounced, locking arms around him. He thrashed, shouting curses, spitting promises of vengeance. "This isn't over. You'll regret this. They'll regret this." His voice echoed as they dragged him back into the elevator, fading only when the doors shut. The floor buzzed, shaken. Eyes darted to me, searching for steadiness. I stood tall, audit every system, reverse every directive. This isn't collapse, it's cleanup. Travis built chaos. We'll dismantle it. The spell broke. People moved back to desks, steadier, purposeful. By evening, the reports flowed in. Payroll restored. Vendors reassured. Shipments rerouted. The back doors were closing one by one. Order was fragile, but it was mine now, yet I knew him. Men like Travis don't vanish after being dragged out twice. Sabotage hadn't broken us. So next, he would turn to something sharper. People. Loyalties. Reputations. Travis had lost the system's war. Next, he'd aim at something far more dangerous. The people themselves. The next day, the storm broke. Travis couldn't touch the systems anymore, so he went for something messier. People. By the time I reached the 32nd floor, he was already there, standing on a desk like a manic preacher, a crowd gathered beneath him. "They don't care about you," he shouted, tie loose, face slick with sweat. "Nordell doesn't care. Ellis doesn't care. They'll strip this place bare and toss you aside. Yesterday's chaos? That wasn't an accident. That was the plan. And she..." His fingers stabbed toward me as I stepped off the elevator. "She's the knife in their hand." Gasps, whispers, doubt spread like wildfire. Some employees looked away. Others stared, wide-eyed. Travis saw it, and he grinned like a man who thought he had his audience back. I walked forward slowly, heels sharp against the floor. "Then prove it," I said. My voice was calm, steady. "Show them your evidence." His grin twitched. He fumbled with a folder, pulling out crumpled printouts, waving them like sacred texts. "Here, emails, records, proof she sold us out." The papers were passed around. Heads bent. Silence grew heavy. Because the pages weren't proof. They were garbage. Cropped screenshots. Draft notes, half of them stamped ignore. Forged metadata that even a junior IT analyst could debunk. Alan from Nordell held one up. "Doctored," he said simply. "Sloppy work." He tossed it back like a useless receipt. Maya's voice was sharper. "This isn't proof, Travis. This is desperation. Something broke in him." His face contorted, fury boiling over the cracks of fear. "You don't understand," he screamed. "I gave everything for this company. My uncle built it. I carried it. You think you can erase me?" I stepped closer until only inches separated us. My words were low, meant for him, but loud enough for everyone to hear. "No, Travis. You erased yourself. Every missed renewal. Every fake fix. Every forged page. You didn't build this company. You hollowed it. And now there's nothing left but the sound of you falling." The room shifted. People weren't afraid anymore. They were seeing him clearly for the first time. And that recognition cut deeper than anything I could say. He snapped, tore the papers in his hands, shreds raining down like confetti. "You'll regret this," he howled. "All of you! I'll burn it all down before I let her win." He lunged at me, wild and reckless, but security was ready. Two men grabbed him mid-stride, arms pinned as he kicked and screamed. "Let me go! I am this company! You can't erase me!" His words echoed as they dragged him into the elevator, his voice breaking, raw, hoarse. "You can't erase me? You can't erase me?" The doors shut. Silence swallowed the floor. Real silence. The kind that signals an ending. I turned to the employees still standing there, wide-eyed but steady now. "It's over," I said softly. "The chaos ends today. What comes next is ours to build, not his to destroy." The spell broke. People exhaled, returned to desks. Order, fragile but real, began to rebuild itself. Travis wasn't just gone. He was finished. That night, as I left HQ, the city skyline glimmered in the glass towers. For the first time in months, I felt the weight lift. I wasn't carrying fire drills anymore. I was carrying authority, continuity. The company had survived him. So had I. Travis's downfall wasn't one blow. It was 1,000 cuts. Lies exposed. Authority stripped. Loyalty lost. Until all that remained was silence where his voice used to be, and in that silence, the company finally moved forward.